Buddy, how you doing? On a roll?
Hello.
How's it going?
Awesome. So
Yeah,
good. I'm so excited. I'm getting your book pulled up.
you're having a great hair day, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. I got a cut. I'm sure this is not a surprise
I
because you
did
saw me.
I did a little of the same. Got my haircut too. It takes me zero time to get ready in the morning. Hair time.
That's kind of rude. That's a rude thing to say to a woman. I mean, I don't
But
have
I
to get
can't.
ready. I just look like this naturally. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, but
Thanks.
I can't do all the cool things that you can do when you have hair on your head, right? Like I
Are
can't
there
like
cool
stand in front
things?
of I can't stand in front of a fan on stage at a rock concert and like have my hair blowing all crazy. I get none of that.
I have I have also not stood on stage at a rock concert and had my hair blowing all crazy, even though clearly I have the daily opportunity to do exactly that. So we're going to talk about your new book today.
Yes.
But before we talk about your new book that you wrote, what's new? Tell me what's new in your world. Where are you? What are you doing?
Well, I'm just having like the best week ever. Um, I'm here in Nashville and I'm in all the business strategy meetings and book conversations. I'm just having an absolute blast. So
Ah,
how lucky am I get to go somewhere super cool location, by the way. If you guys haven't visited Nashville, and I'm not talking about like, for a bachelorette party or something, but like if you haven't just been to Nashville and had a good time.
right.
um, what a beautiful area. I've just really
We're
enjoyed getting to know the area.
we ordered some great weather. I just looked out and noticed that the tree just outside my window, the leaves are gold. Like in the last 2 days, they're starting to really turn gold, it's one of my favorite times of the year when the leaves change.
Mm.
It gets real pretty up in here.
Yeah, my allergies are reminding me of that change right now.
All right. Well, when you come over, we'll give you some stuff for that. All right.
So yeah, it's been great. Visiting everybody. I've been able to have spent the day yesterday with Zach Bohannon. We were in the east end of Nashville,
Okay. East side on the east
east
side.
side. Yeah,
Okay. Which is very artsy.
yeah, really cool.
Yeah. It's got a
It's my
cool.
first time going to a WeWork location, so a little bit of a hype for WeWork. They were great. So if you guys are looking for places to go
Co-working
do temp
space.
work, not temp work. I got to be careful what terms I use. If you're looking for a place to work outside of your home or regular office,
Yes. Yes. A co-working space
right?
is WeWork. Funnily enough, I went to an event at the 615 Collective
Hmm.
yesterday, which is an all women's co-working space. I'm going to give a shout out to Collective 615, it's a really reasonable place to meet other entrepreneurial women, develop your relationships, work on your business, that sort of thing, which is really the benefit of a co-working space. Byron actually used to um, uh, have an office there. And so I would go there from time to time. I just really like the fact that you could always have coffee.
Yes, endless amounts of coffee.
Yes. Yes. And we have Wayne, and Wayne is in Egypt. Hi, Wayne.
Nice. What's up, Wayne? How's it
What's up?
going?
How are you?
One of these days we're actually not going to get a camel, little emoji icon deal. We're going to get a picture of Wayne on an actual camel.
Oh, no pressure, Wayne. I'm not sure how easy that would be. You think is it easy to get on a camel in Egypt?
All you have to do is challenge a Coastie to something like that, and you will end up with a picture
Oh,
of
I
them on a
see.
camel.
Okay. So I feel like something just went down. Nice
There
hair
you
too.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, this is my terrible attempt to grow a full beard, Wayne. First time in my life I've ever done this. Camels stink. Yes. Yes,
What
they
was the
do.
impetus behind uh, the facial hair?
Um, it's funny because like when you retire from the service, you're like, I'm doing all the things you guys haven't let me do
Oh,
forever.
right. Yes.
And I had facial hair until I came in the service, and then I had to shave while I was in for 22 years. And then when I got out, I was really worried about maintaining this very professional appearance, and I was in corporate and I was doing all the things. And at the time, I just didn't really have I guess you could say I wasn't brave enough to try. I was like, in fact, I took a picture at my first hire was with BMT out of the service. And when they took
Yep.
my employee picture, I had a goatee. And I went to an event with a bunch of other guys, and they said, all you retirees grow goatees.
Right.
Yeah. So I had this moment in the spring where I just got sick of shaving. And I said, I think this summer when things get a little bit better, I'm going to try not shaving for a while. And someone told me, and this stuck in my head, that you got to go 3 months. If you go 3 months, you'll make it. And I said, all
Oh,
right.
because you get over the annoying part.
Yep. And I
Right?
said,
Yeah.
I've never given it 3 months. So that was it. I just decided to do it.
How long are you in now?
3 months. 2 months or so.
Okay. And so do you think it's going to stick, or?
We shall leave that determination to Tammy.
Oh, right. Because facial hair can be unpleasant for the other person in a relationship.
Yeah. My thing is this, like, I don't really
Yeah.
have to look at me, but she does. And, I feel obligated.
Well, and it's not even that. I mean, if she might not be used to kissing a man with a beard, although I'm not making any assumptions, right? I mean, I don't know. But it's like scratchy and itchy if you don't have a really soft mustache or a beard.
Yeah.
Then so it's really not having to look at, like Byron does all different sorts of things with his facial hair, as the year goes, right? So sometimes he'll just go, I shaved it all off, and then he'll, start growing it back or whatever. But it's nice and soft, so it's not scratchy or anything like that. So it doesn't really aggravate me. He looks great whatever he does, but
now before I grew it out, I would keep it really low. I had facial hair. I didn't shave. I just kept it trimmed low, and that was rough. Like the kids would just, if I gave Maddie a kiss on her, she'd get tore up. So this is definitely a better option there. But the kids are like, get rid of it, take it off. It's too long. It's crazy. And I'm like, you guys just don't like change. So anyway.
You guys just don't like change.
You just don't like change. Yeah. Let's see. So outside of like talking about all the books and planning about all the books and books this week.
Yeah.
I have really not had much time to read. I've been trying to finish Robert Otone's The Vile Thing We Created, and I have not cracked that book since I got off the plane.
Oh, interesting. Well, you've been busy doing fun things, right? So sometimes reading takes a back seat. It depends on the oh, thank you, Wayne. Wayne complimented my hair. Thank you. I appreciate it. I got a haircut and I decided at this length I don't love it straight as much as I will when it's just a little bit longer. So add a little beachy wave. Thanks for noticing. I am almost done with book 2 of my 3-book trilogy, my Russian spy thriller that I'm reading. And it's so good. Like, I want to know how it ends, but I don't, because then it will be done. Also, I think I will wait maybe 2 years and then listen to all 3 books again. They're about 20 hours each, which is just delicious. Just having something that I know that if I'm driving or working out or cleaning, I can listen. Yesterday during my lunch hour, which is such a joke, right? When you're an entrepreneur, it's like my lunch, 12 minutes. Right? I just like finished my lunch and then sat and listened to it for a little bit. It's so wonderful. Yeah.
You listen to your lunch, or you listen to the audiobook?
I listen to the audiobook.
Your lunch is like, I'm over here. I know you want to finish me.
I'm over here. Yeah.
Don't you wish you could?
Yeah. But I just sat outside in the perfect weather and listened to a book. It was just fantastic. I usually read during lunch. So this time it was listening. Super fun. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, other than that, I've just been doing this book launch week and getting ready for the next one. It's crazy.
Yeah. What are we up to? Let's look at the Do you
course
know how many
pricing
reviews we
strategies.
have?
Now, if I were a little cooler, I would have brought an actual like resellable copy with me. But I had my
Yeah, but you're traveling. You're traveling during book launch week, which is a really tricky thing. And mine's on the way, but it's new. So they're like, we're going to deliver this to you in Amazon Prime 2 hours in like 3 to 4 days. I'm like, yeah, that's what happens with new books.
yeah.
All right. So we have 5 5-star reviews. We're making progress.
Oh, 5. We had 4
This is
yesterday, so we're doing
fantastic.
good.
Yeah. Love
Yeah.
it. I love that it is part of the course strategy series. There are currently 2 books in the series.
Yes, ma'am.
And I love the cover. I love that it's the inverse of monetize your book with a course. So it goes, it doesn't match, but it goes. I think you did a beautiful job with your designer on
Props to
that.
Dino.
Props to Dino for
Props to
sure.
Dino Marino.
Yeah.
And
Very
now I'm
good.
picky about back of books, by the way. After working
I
with
know.
Dino, every time I pick up a either an indie published book or even a trad book now, I look at the
Yep.
back and I'm just always impressed with the back covers that he produces.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like indie publishing knocks the cover out, they do okay, but then when you go to the back, you're like, oh, okay, like it's like a low quality font or a low resolution text,
Sure.
or the margins aren't lined up
Sure.
right, or they don't wrap, they don't do nice separations of fonts, and
Yeah.
so Dino really did a great job on this one again.
Love it. Of course. Of course you did. Yeah.
Right.
And so I love that you started with helping people who have nonfiction books to create courses. And then there's a part of every course creator that I've ever met, including me, that says, how do I price this sucker? Right. And it seems like there's this, wouldn't it be nice if there was like some magical pricing machine where you could put in all the ingredients and it
Yeah.
like factored in the X factory things, like how big is your platform and how much knowledge do you have and how long is the course and what's included, and then it just spit out your number at the bottom. Like,
that'd be great.
isn't that great? I feel like that's what your book does. I feel like your book does a really good job of being this magical filter that really helps you to, if not, it doesn't give you the number, but it allows you to intelligently figure out what the number is. But as I just kind of alluded to, course pricing is so difficult. And if you get it right, you can sell lots and lots and lots and lots of courses. If you get it wrong, if it's too low or it's too high, then you won't sell as many courses. So talk about why that's so difficult, in your opinion.
Yeah, it's in the opening of the book, I talk about this being the single most subjective topic in all of the services I provide my clients, because usually they come to you and you talk about, I want to build a course. Okay, well, curriculum, we have a refined process for developing
Right.
curriculum.
Right.
There's a lot of go no go decisions. There's a lot of option A or option B. There's
Right.
some pretty easy things. There's a lot of decisions to make, but they come with very clear routes, right? You can just say
Right.
that one or that
Right.
one.
Yeah.
With pricing, it's very subjective, and people feel the conversation about their pricing. They don't get that passionate when you start talking about, whether we should do the worksheet in Wobo on a digital platform, or if we should do it in a downloadable, fillable PDF. They're not like, oh, like this, I'm going to have to sleep on this one and take this very personally. But with pricing, they feel, I guess it feels a little bit more vulnerable, and it's very subjective. And so because of that, it feels uncertain.
Right.
And it makes uncertainty increases the perception of risk. People feel like there's some risk with pricing, and it's our natural reaction to kind of not be as comfortable with that. So with the pricing book, really what I was trying to do is give people the confidence. If they know how to think about price and they know how to like digest their options, they'll feel better about the decisions they make with pricing, and understanding what all of those options mean for your business
Yeah.
and for your potential and your opportunities gives you the ability to make intelligent trade-offs. Because I think, you have to kind of understand what what you're doing when you put that price on your course. And yeah, so that's why I wrote it. It was just to give people a little bit more confidence in something that feels so risky, you know?
Yes. Yes. So what are the things that we want to consider? Because when people are talking to me about pricing, the first thing I'll say is, well, we're trained to pay someone for their time. But if you're just paying someone for their time, then just pay the minimum wage. But what they're getting is access to information, education, experience, knowledge, ideas, conversations, connections, those sorts of things. How does pricing a course based on the amount of time that it is factor into how much you charge for it? Or does it? Or should it?
Yeah. So I talk about the pros and cons of using something as clear cut as time and materials pricing, which is very common in like trades and physical asset development. Like if you're building buildings or cars, or, you're producing any like physical product, like it cost me a certain amount of money to make this cup of coffee for somebody.
Right.
The book, the book goes into the details of that, like why that's a bad idea in some instances with online courses, and maybe a better idea for things like live course delivery. So if you're a course creator and you have developed this curriculum, there's a chance that you have either taught the course live and now you're moving it online, or you're teaching it online and will eventually move it to a live delivery as well.
Yep.
And so I wanted people to understand why you have to price those two products differently, or you should potentially consider pricing them differently, because one has a bigger difference, or a bigger time and materials commitment than the other does. And if you take a time and materials approach to pricing your online course, it's going to be very unfair for your purchaser. And so I actually title one of the chapters, Never Priced by Time and Materials, for that reason. And it's specifically for online courses. But before you kind of do that, before you think about whether you want to use time and materials, or if you want to do something a little bit less rigid or formulaic, you should understand what the 4 points are for developing a course pricing strategy. And these are the things that honestly matter the most in your pricing. So if you start thinking about like, oh, I have to count all the hours it took for me to make the course, and the cost of my microphone and my camera, and each of my hours is worth one of my consulting hours because there's a trade-off, an opportunity cost, you're going to get yourself in a bit of a pinch.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because it can take you 100 hours to create a course. So then are you charging someone $500 an hour for the time? Right. But then you get into the fact that at some point you hit black, you're in the black for the course, and it's all profit from there. So that doesn't seem fair. Yeah. So do you know what the 4 things are off the top of your head?
I bet you do.
I bet you do.
Only because I've read the book like 35 times in the last 2 weeks, right?
Yes. And that's a real number.
Yeah. Yeah. For those that are like, oh, you're exaggerating, go indie publish a book. You'll see.
If you do it right, if you do it well, you're going to read the book over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. If you're going to do a professional job, you are going to know that book. So the first one is course competitor prices. So you want to be aware of your competitor's price, but you never, ever want to just openly adopt their price with no more thinking.
Or undercut them, or be like, I'm just going to sell, or charge many multiples of their.
Right.
It's just a fact. It's just something to know.
You need to be aware of your competitors' prices. It is a very important data point for you to consider your industry, where you sit in relation to your competitors, or even if you don't view them as competitors, just as the rest of the market. Because guess what? Your buyers are most likely shopping, and they can see the prices of other offers. So they're going to have a response when they see the price after they've been looking at other prices. So you need to be aware of that so that you can understand through their eyes how your product looks price-wise against the rest of the field.
Yeah.
So that's one very important point.
Well, and here's something, perhaps we talk about this later, is that you don't know if their courses are selling at that price.
Right.
You don't know how happy their customers are.
Right.
Right. And or what the experience is like for the learners or the prospective learners. They could be charging a lot and have a lot of unhappy students, or they could be charging a lot and not having any students at all, or somewhere in the middle, or
Yep.
they could be charging a lot, or they could be charging a fair price for their course and they have very happy students, but you don't necessarily know that. So
Right.
those are things that just having course knowledge, pricing knowledge of your competitors doesn't always give you the whole story, right?
Absolutely.
Am I right on that? Okay.
Absolutely. There's so much more to this than just what is my competitor charging.
Yes.
Yep. And so I unpack a lot of that in the book. Like there's some understanding here about why you should know it, but you shouldn't just adopt it. The second point is that the value of the course isn't what you think it may be as a creator. The value of the course to the person buying it is
Yeah.
purely about like what outcome they can achieve. So they really don't care if you spent $3,000 or $33,000
They
building
do
that
not.
course.
Nope.
It is not their problem. It is not, they're not going to know it.
Right.
They have
And
no
they
idea what
shouldn't.
your investment. No.
It's the same
No.
thing with a book. But when
Yep.
we're pricing your book, you don't charge more if it took you 5 years to write your book than if it
Nope.
took you 5 months to write your book.
They have no idea. And they
They have no
shouldn't.
idea, and they should not know how much it costs you to produce your book, how long it took you.
Right.
So it sounds like it's very similar
Very similar.
with course pricing.
Right.
Do we want to answer Wayne's? Is now a good point, a good time to answer Wayne's?
Yeah, let me come back to that after I finish the
Okay.
thought
Yeah,
on the
great.
outcome real quick,
Perfect.
just because I want to make sure people grasp that. So,
Yeah.
so when you sell a course and your buyers are considering purchasing your course, they're thinking about what this course is going to provide them. Part of it is experience. You know, they're going to have an experience with your product, and that's, you know, if it's educational and it's fun, that feels better to them.
Right.
Of course, if the topic is aligned for that. But the bigger part is like, why am I buying your course? I'm buying it normally so that I can achieve some outcome. You're going to take me from point A to point B. I can't get to point B as efficiently or effectively as on my own as I could with your course. So I want your course to help me get there. There's an outcome associated with me getting there. And that outcome is worth something to me as a buyer. And so if you're the seller of the course, you should be aware of how much value that course's outcome can potentially provide your learner. Now, you can't guarantee that outcome for them because you can't control their actions. You can't control whether they'll fully understand what you're teaching them and if they'll apply it properly. So never guarantee them, like, because you made $1 million with this method, that they will make $1 million. They can, but that doesn't necessarily mean they will. They have to take action. But from the buyer's perspective, they see potential. They see an outcome and they see a value associated with that potential outcome. And that really kind of shapes what their expectations are for price. So if I go to a dealership and I go to buy a Mercedes-Benz, I have a certain expectation about what a Mercedes-Benz buying experience is going to be like and what the car is going to be like. And I'm not
And
expecting
what
a Honda
service is
Accord
going to be
price.
like, and maintenance and
All of it.
all of it. Yes.
So I'm not going to be surprised if I see the Mercedes-Benz sticker price. I might still reel a little bit because it is a little steep, but I'm not going to be like, oh, well, how is that possible? I wasn't expecting that. And I'm also definitely not going to expect a Honda Accord price. So
no, or a Honda Accord Drive or Honda Accord gas mileage.
Absolutely. There is a specific outcome of that experience that I'm expecting, and they will strive to meet that outcome, and they will price their car accordingly.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So it's the same thing here. All right. So Wayne, you asked, do we have or get feedback? Yes. Honore, you want to talk about this first because it's about books?
I'm not sure what he means by feedback mechanisms.
Well, I would say that there's two layers to this. In production, you can use your beta team, you can use fellow readers, those types of things.
Right.
After the book's been published, you're probably leaning on reviews.
Yes. So yes. So the feedback, and so here's the real truth of this. When I'm sending the book to the advanced reader team, the book is being published as is, maybe with a couple of typos fixed. I'm not doing any type of substantive revision to the book at that point. When I'm doing the substantive revisions are during the editorial process. And if I have, and I do now have a very small group of people that I'll send a rough final first draft to it, knowing that it hasn't been edited or proofread, just to see if they have any suggestions. But I am not inclined, nor do I think others should be, to get general feedback from the world, because the world does not know. Unless I want to get feedback from people who know, not people who think they know. If that makes sense. And I think I might be frozen. I'm not frozen, you're frozen. I think I was frozen. So
I'm back.
What did you hear? Was I back or you back?
I'm back. My internet was.
Oh, it was your internet. So I was live the whole time making like funny faces and
maybe. I can't confirm nor deny. So if you guys could put in the chat if you saw funny faces.
Were you seeing funny faces or were you seeing Lucas? That's a good question. So I'm not inclined anymore to say, like I saw an author yesterday post 6 different book covers and say, y'all, which book cover should I choose? I don't ever do that. And I want constructive feedback around typos and those sorts of things. But I've been around the block. People really do sometimes. I think it's a mistake to solicit advice from people who don't have a line of sight to what's effective and what's ineffective when it comes to books or courses.
Right.
So I only ask people who have rich, deep knowledge. Thank you for that, Karen. So it's a good thing I didn't start yelling to my husband or something. So you never know who's frozen. So I suggest that you get feedback from people who know.
Right.
People who are experts. So just like my husband's in the music business, and when I met him, I thought everybody could sing. And then he ruined me for all time because he would point out, oh, that person's flat or they're pitchy or whatever. And I didn't know what any of those things meant. And I still don't to a certain extent. But now my ears bleed much more often than before. I was living in ignorance and is bliss, right?
Right.
The same thing, if someone is not a book publishing professional or a course publishing professional, they can only give you the user's feedback, which is not usually fully comprehensive. Now, I like the feedback that says I wasn't able to open this video or the link didn't work or something like that. But general feedback, I don't ask for that.
Right. And with courses, I highly recommend you beta test with a group of your ideal learners.
Yes.
Which is because that course serves a specific purpose, and that is to deliver a certain curriculum to a needed or to an audience with that need. And you need to make sure that all those points of the curriculum meet that objective. So for courses, I recommend you beta test, not with your aunt and your best friend and your sister's, high school boyfriend. You make sure that you use target audience members in the mix of those trusted family members and other resident experts to assess whether the course actually meets their need or not.
Right.
Yep. Which kind of brings me to the third point, which is, you kind of asked about this earlier. So when we're talking about the 4 points, the first would have been competitor prices. The second is the value of the outcome for the learner. And the third is the costs of delivery and the format. So if you're in an online course, this is where we start talking about those like time and materials, whether it's appropriate or not. If you are pricing an online course and you are not incorporating a live Q&A element, it's purely passive, you're probably going to have a lower price point than if you had a live component and live interaction with the instructor. And that makes sense to the buyer. Remember, all of this has to make sense to them when they're the ones involved in that decision. So if you have a course that can be both passive and incorporate a live Q&A, you can decide whether you want to package those two things as two separate products. hey, you can buy the passive course for this rate. And if you want to add on live question and answer sessions, you can bump up to this. If you want to just teach it in a single format online where people consume and then they don't have that live Q&A element, then you can price it a little lower and reward them for giving up that opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have a question, and so maybe this is a rabbit hole or a conversation for later or next time. Mm-hmm. There's a different tax implication for a purely on-demand course versus a course that has a Q&A option, at least as the tax code reads right now in this country. How does it affect you if you offer it and they take it or they don't take it, or does it? Or do those have to be taxed and
right
taken care of separately?
Yeah. So the last chapter of the book is actually about course taxes. And I put a disclaimer in there, which I'll also repeat right now, not verbatim, but like paraphrasing here. I'm not your accountant and I'm not a tax professional. So you guys make sure you talk to your tax professionals about this. Yep. I, as a business owner of online courses, I spoke with the state of Virginia, one of their tax reps, about my products because I was selling enough courses that I knew I had a substantial enough risk if I didn't do my tax claims properly. What are we actually talking about here? Well, your courses, when you sell them online, taxes are based off of the location of the buyer, not the seller. So if you sell a course worldwide, basically you're responsible for remitting taxes to all those different locations that require it. And that is obviously, pardon my language, damn near impossible to do very well right now. And it's partly because, taxes are as clear as mud. Yes, Karen, you are correct. Yes. So because of that, a lot of states and provinces, I'm just talking about North America right here. So if you're in the US or Canada, your states and provinces, most of them have their own definition of what qualifies as a product, a tangible product, or a service. And in many cases, your course falls into the category of a service and not a product, a tangible product, for two reasons. One, I can't walk around with your product in my hand. It's an online course. Two, if there's any live component, that is considered a service. So if you really want to kind of make sure you're covered here, having a live component adds a little bit more service relationship to the product, and that can really help clarify things if you feel like it's a little too muddy. Now, you could do that as simply as like having a once a month live Q&A session, like Honore and I do. That's perfectly fine. If you're a coach and you're hearing this and you have a course and you integrate it with your coaching program, this also qualifies. You're providing that type of live service. If you sell a completely passive course online, you need to check with your state and make sure that you're adhering to the state's rules. But in many cases, even a passive online course can be considered non-taxable because they don't view it as a tangible product. Now, Thinkific, who's the learning management system that I use, they do all of that for you now. Part of their Thinkific payments plan, if you're on Thinkific payments, is that they know they've programmed their system and they've partnered with a couple of different providers, payment processors and the like, to determine this thing, and they'll actually remit your taxes for you. So that's like next level, because it's not just like telling you, hey, you owe taxes. They're actually paying those taxes to those locations on your behalf as part of your purchase.
That's crazy good. That's crazy good. Do you have to tell them if it's considered a course or a product or a service?
No, they're following the local laws by those areas, because what's happening is, as the online e-commerce has grown more mature, as it's gotten older, the states and the federal governments are actually wrapping their arms around these things and taxing them. Initially, they couldn't make sense of it, and they were just like
everything else.
It was kind of the Wild West,
yeah, like everything.
But now they're locking it down.
Are you breathing? Are you breathing air? We're going to tax it. Tax the air.
So now what they're seeing is that without having a good tax law associated with e-commerce, they're losing a potentially massive amount of tax revenue.
Right.
And businesses are shifting from concrete to online in greater capacities than they were, especially post-pandemic. And
Yep.
so they're drilling this down more. So in the last chapter of the book, I talk about that, and that's a good synopsis of what's in the chapter. But you really need to talk to your tax professional, because there's an additional layer, and I don't want to scare you guys. This is a really good problem to have. But in some locations, if you do $100,000 or more worth of sales in that state, no matter what you're selling, doesn't matter if it's services or products, you owe them taxes.
Yep.
So you could do $100,000 or more worth of sales in the state of Virginia as a Tennessee business, and you're providing services, and they're gonna tax you for doing that much work with people in their state.
Yeah.
So I
That's
welcome
a good
that problem.
Yeah. We'll take that. We'll take that problem.
I would like one of those problems in every state, please.
Yeah. So what is the what do you have in terms of a workbook or a course to go with this book? Or are they in process? Are they never coming? Are they out? What's happening?
Yeah. So the
What
book
else
is
you
set
got,
up.
Lucas?
Yeah. Right now, the book is set up to give you the tools to start applying these things right now. I wanted to make sure that the book could stand alone. I've incorporated some of this into my Monetize Your Book with a Course program. So if you go to marinotraining.com and you look up the Monetize Your Book with a Course, you go to that course, you'll have course pricing strategies content as part of your curriculum. Because I try to keep things simple. It's like, get it all here. Now I'm going to launch a mini course on this, where I teach the tenets of the book, and I go into deeper detail than the book would allow, and then give people kind of some applicable worksheets to be able to start writing this out for themselves. Because, for example, this last fourth point on the 4 points is understanding industry norms and learner spending habits. You need to take some notes here, right, to do that.
Right.
I'll explain the concept, and then you guys can understand why this would require a little bit of observation. But your industry that you work in has certain buyer habits associated with it, whether you like it or not. You don't get to control this, right? So Honore, we work with books, right? So we work with people that want to write, sell, monetize, write, publish, and monetize nonfiction books, right? So in Honore's world, she knows that when people walk into a store to buy a paperback 5x8 book, they expect to pay a certain price for that book. It could be, there's a margin. It could be a couple
There's a
dollars
window.
more.
There's a window. Yes.
But it's not going to be $150.
Right.
Right.
Right. That's an outlier. That's an outlier. And that's usually a direct sale off of someone's website. And it's very special material. Yes.
Right.
So what you're talking about, there's a window of pricing that people will think is too little, reasonable, too much. Yes.
Right. Now, here's the magic question. Where is that written down as a standard? It's not.
Only in my course, Lucas.
Right. But there's no law. There's no.
Nope.
There's no gate on Amazon that says you can't sell a 5x8 for that much money. There's none of that. It's even, but at least that industry has some buyer norms associated with it. At least people know when they walk in that they have that in their head.
Yes.
That doesn't exist in the online course space yet. It's too young. It hasn't been around long enough.
Well, now, you can't see how big a course is. It's not a tangible product that you pick up anymore. It used to be when you would buy something with, as I did, cassette tapes or DVDs. But the minute we went to MP3s and then online learning, the only thing that you get is Thinkific does that summary.
Right.
Has this many hours of videos. Right. And what else is on there? Like how many materials there are? I forget what's on the.
Yeah. Lesson count. Like how many lessons there are.
How many lessons? Yeah.
How many hours of video. By the way, guys, I usually recommend you do not display that on your course cards. I'd recommend you take that off. Oh. You want a little insider baseball on that?
Give me this. Tell me now, Lucas, since I haven't heard this before today. No.
I usually recommend taking that off because it can intimidate some buyers.
Oh, if there's 80 hours of content, they're just like,
Or
oh my gosh.
yeah,
Okay, that's awesome. And so obviously in Thinkific, there's the option to not have that option.
right. You can just click a little box and it takes that off the card.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to have to go analyze my courses now. Well, but that's
Now,
been a concern. That's why I've added some
right,
extra content and
right,
videos, because I felt like if someone was looking at it going, well, it's $1,000 or $3,000 or whatever it is, like, what do I get for that? Right. That's always the
right,
question someone gets, is like, what do I get in exchange for my
right.
time and my money? So
Well,
that's great information.
to specifically address that, I recommend not using those little numbers of hours of videos and numbers of lessons, because here's the deal, guys. They don't really care about buying your features. They really care about buying your content.
And your benefit
So,
to them.
yeah. So you need to
Yeah.
talk about what this course can help them achieve. And you need
Yep.
to talk about what you teach to help them get there. The topics, the way you present it, that stuff's important to them after you talk about the problem and how your
Yep.
solution can help them get to a certain outcome. And you talk that outcome and let
Right.
them understand, okay, I can get where I need to go if I take this course. Then after that, you can talk about those features if you'd like. The problem
Yep.
with putting that stuff on a course card is it kind of puts it right at the front. And I'd prefer to put that information at the back end. So if I feel like it's important for my learners to know how many hours of video content there are or lessons, I would
Yep.
put that toward the bottom of my sales page. Also, there's a difference between requiring completion and not requiring completion. So, for example, if you sell a course that helps people prepare for the project management professional certification, they are required to have 35 contact hours. And if your course doesn't deliver those hours, they may not meet the requirement to get their certification.
Mm,
So it's
right.
really important in that industry that you list those hours,
Sure.
right? So you need to understand this is exactly the point about
Yeah.
understanding buyers' expectations. What are the norms in that industry? What are the
Mm,
requirements in that industry? So if your course is in a world where those requirements exist, you have to list those if you really want a good shot at selling. But if you don't, if
right.
you work in a world where people may like short content, for example, listing 80 hours of video is counter to that, and it could hurt your sales,
Right.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, just to kind of touch back on that fourth point, if you're
Yeah.
talking about the buyer's expectations and the industry norms, and that industry has these requirements, you must do your best to meet them. If that industry doesn't have those norms, you have to determine whether it helps you or hurts you to list those things. And it's not necessarily about bragging about how much material you've produced for them. It's more about what they want to see. So you can ask your beta learners, you can ask your audience things like that, your close knit circle. Hey, would it be helpful if you knew this, or is it like kind of a bad thing? Now you're going to get all the different
Mm,
answers. You still need to make a
yep.
decision, right? And so my default answer is if there's not an industry norm, I normally don't put something that could potentially overwhelm them. If there is an industry norm, if you're working in an industry where people are very critical and they want to see that they've bought all the things, listed at
Yep.
the bottom of your sales page,
Yep.
not at the front.
Yep.
Because I'll never get through your list of course features to get to the stuff that really matters, the outcomes, the benefits, all those things.
Yep.
Okay, so one of the other points that's really important for you to kind of wrap your head around with buyer behaviors is when you did your research to find out what your competitor prices are, and you looked at their landing pages, their sales pages, and you looked at their prices, you're getting an idea about what is forming the opinions and expectations of your buyers. This is what they're seeing. This is
Yep.
what they're expecting. And so when you go to produce your product and put it out to the world and price your product, part of understanding buyers' behaviors and expectations and the industry norms is seeing what's in the industry.
Right.
So you're kind of knocking out birds with one stone when you go sites and start doing that research. This is why the research matters. And your buyers may not be the same people that you initially think they are. So you need to confirm that.
Yeah.
So let's say we're teaching people how to self-publish books, right? and let's say we're only doing nonfiction. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense if we were positioning ourselves um, to only assess audiences that are learning how to publish fiction. They're not the same buyers.
Right.
They might have different spending habits. They may have different
Oh, for sure.
right expectations for products. You could take
Mhm.
someone that is publishing fiction and dump them in the nonfiction publishing world, and their eyes would just light up when they saw the differences in prices for products, because the outcomes are different. It's not entertainment, it's
Right.
helping you earn money, right? And fiction is entertainment.
Right.
So that's like trying to film a documentary and price it like a blockbuster hit. Like,
Right. Right.
they're two different
It's,
things.
yeah, apples and oranges, still
That's
fruit.
right.
Just yeah, and there's so many things to consider, which is why I'm so glad you wrote this book to help people kind of wade through the mystery and not just take some noodles and throw them up against the wall and see if they work.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So do we have any questions?
Yeah. Drop your questions in the
And
chat, guys.
thanks for popping in, Karen. I know we've been working her like a skinny mule, right?
Yeah.
And another book, and another book, and another book. Yeah.
Thank you, Karen. Oh,
Yeah.
she's so nice.
Yeah.
She says the book is amazing. That's very nice of
Well,
you.
she's not wrong. She's not wrong. I mean, it's so nice. It's why I love books, why I was a reader before I became an author. My appreciation for someone taking the time to put their knowledge in a place where I could learn from their words. I mean, that is just so amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. And this book has been a little bit of a different experience for me with conveying information than like Monetize Your Book with a Course was, because I feel like, this one's obviously a little smaller. This one's not like a 17,000 word book. So it's a quick read, but it's very thought-provoking content. So I didn't want to overwhelm people. You really need to take time to think about the things that you read in this book. So I wanted to produce something that was nice, tight, and compact, but gave you a ton of deep dive thinking to do.
Yeah.
And you'll come out the
That's
back
my
side
favorite
of it,
kind.
right? You'll be confident that you can consume the book rather quickly. The audiobook version, which is coming out soon, is just about 2 hours in length. So
Awesome.
you can read this book in 2 to 3 hours and be leagues ahead of where you were when you started, 2 hours before, in confidence about your pricing. And it's really what it's about. Is I wanted people to feel more confident in their pricing, because like I said, there's no magic chart. It's very subjective, and you don't want to feel like you're taking a risk.
Right. And it provides a tremendous amount of value to the reader in a short period of time, which is my favorite kind of book. The stories, I don't want those to end.
Right.
The nonfiction book, I want to get the information. I want to have the transformation. I want to have something I can put into practice. And I don't want anything unnecessary. If it takes 200 pages, I'll happily read 200 pages. But if it doesn't, and I think back to books that I have read that were quite thick, quite wordy. And there was always like, on what page was that one thing that I highlighted that I needed to know? I don't need all of the 3 or 4 pages around it. I just needed that one piece of information. Now, of course, there's always context that's needed and required. But again, if you can create that context in 3 paragraphs, don't do it in 3 pages.
Right.
So I really like a book, regardless of how long it is, that every piece of it is really meaty and helpful.
Right.
Yeah. Meaty and helpful, or meaty or helpful. Because sometimes it's not meat, there's encouragement, right? You really have to encourage some of your book is encouraging the reader that you can price your courses effectively. And that's not meat, that's encouragement.
Right.
But in order to feel confident that I'm going to read through it and be able to, find the cheese at the end of the maze.
Right.
Right. In order to find the cheese, I need to be able to make the decisions. Do I go this way or that way?
Hmm.
So I think that that's really important for sure.
Yeah, it is really important. And there's a lot to unpack in this topic, and you could very easily get overwhelmed if there's too much information in there. And that's why I was very specific about like picking
Mhm.
out the key elements that really drive your decision. Like, because you could get a
Yep.
lot of there's a lot of smoke, right? That could
Yeah.
interfere with your decision making.
Yes. Yes.
Um, a couple of the other points that I bring up in the book that are really critical, and I'm not going to expand on them here, but I do want to list them so people can understand what
Please.
I'm talking about. Is, it's not just about setting a single price. Like, what if you have a membership or subscriptions
Mm-hmm.
or payment plans? And what are the pros and cons of each of those things? That's all listed in the book. What about affiliate shares and revenue shares? How does that impact my pricing? What about running sales promotions? Like, all these things are the
Yeah.
next topic that you end up running into when you go to price. You're like, I'm going to
Yep.
price it at $99, and then you go, okay, cool, I'm going to do my launch. Oh gosh, do I do a promo price? Like, or it's not
Right.
selling. How do I do a promo price, or whatever the case is? Like,
Right.
you have to
Where do
be
you
able to,
go from $99, especially if you're doing a 30 to 50%
right?
revenue share?
Yep.
And so then you've put in all this time and effort into your course, and that might be the right price.
Right.
It might be the right price, or it might be many multiples of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, like, beta, like, use my regular price. Do I give my beta away for free? Do I do a reduced price? Like, what do I do with that?
Yeah.
Like, for a test group, and all of that's in there, so you can kind of think all that through. And then on the backside, you'll be much more comfortable. But it's kind of funny because I think the overarching topic of the book is this is all very strategic, and as tactical as these topics sound, each of those is a very applied thing. But when you
Yes.
pull them all together, you realize you have this big picture, this
Strategy.
strategy that you can use to
Yes.
execute for a whole year or many years or a
Yep.
single instance.
Yep.
You and I were talking recently that a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, helped someone with a very popular course launch. They did extremely well with their course launch.
Yep.
And I reached out to this person and gave him a compliment in email. I've never met this person. I've never talked to him. He was the course host. And I just said, hey, I do this for a living. And I just wanted to say congratulations on your successful launch. You should be very proud of yourself because what you've achieved is unique and special. And you knocked it out of the park, dude. Congrats. Like, pat on the back. And he wrote me back and said, oh, thank you so much. You do this for a living? That's crazy. And I said, yeah, I know it's crazy. So, but
You're
his next
crazy.
thing was like,
Okay.
hey, can I ask you a quick question? Sure. And he asked me, like, I only plan to release this for a short period of time. And I'm thinking about what to do with this next phase. And my question to him was, why did you only release it for such a short period of time? And they were using that to provide urgency. And I'm like, you could have used your price to create urgency and not the availability of the product. And if you do want to use availability of the product for urgency, there's a way to do that that doesn't make it sound like it's never going to be available again, because the minute you make it available again, you're a liar.
Right. And people don't, you don't think about,
Yep.
we don't necessarily think about the word never. And the other thing that occurred to me is if he had known about you or went looking for you, not knowing who you were, right? Looking
Right.
for an expert, the expert can sometimes tell you, don't do this, do that. Have you thought about this? And it's mind blowing. It's like,
Yeah.
I never even thought of that. I was having a conversation with a soon to be author yesterday. And he was like, well, what if I just, did something really quick and just, wrote something really quick in the next couple of weeks and just published it myself. And then I'll take the proceeds from that. And then I'll take a course or have hire you for. And I said, you have three options. You can do number one, and that's not in alignment with your brand and your business, right? So you can just go, oh, I'm just going to create a course and put it up there, which is what I did in the beginning when there were not course experts or none that I knew to look for, right? And I got crappy course results, basically, right? I did
Right.
better than I should have,
Right.
to be fair, right? Or you can have an expert do it, outsource it. If you have to, hold your nose and write the check. Go, oh my gosh, right? It's like,
It'll
oh,
be worth it in the end.
hold your breath and run the MX, right? Or you can educate yourself with what an expert has provided. That's going to take you the longest amount of time, and you still may not get the results of using an expert.
Right.
But you probably blew his mind. It's like, oh, you do this for a living? And then he had made a critical mistake with his launch that
Right.
he may or may not be able to correct, or he may have to redo something else entirely in order to have his integrity. So it's very
Right.
interesting, because I have used the word never on very rare occasions, because I always reserve the right to change my mind or make an adjustment.
Right.
Right. And I have used the
Yep.
word never. And in one instance, I will never, ever do this again. And I proved to myself actually 3 more reasons after I did it why I would never do it again.
Right.
Right. And
Yep.
so I was like, oh, I was right. And thank goodness I was right. But I would have to eat my words if I were to go back and do that again, which whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But
Sure.
it was around doing a really super crazy discount on courses at Black Friday.
Right.
And just so you know, in case anyone is wondering if they should price higher or lower, the lower you price a course, the more of a problem you will have with people paying you.
Yep.
When
Absolutely.
I run $100,000 charge on someone's Amex, it goes through 100% of the time. When I charge someone's card for $19 or $29 or $59, it goes through about 98% of the time.
Right. Yep.
And sometimes you're chasing, it's just not worth it, right? It's like, it's not
Right.
worth it to chase $19, but I never chase anyone for $100,000. They're like, here's my Amex, feel free to use it whenever you're ready.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
There's no
it's
issue.
true.
Yeah, it's 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. I never have an issue. Anything over $1,000, $2,000, there's never an issue. But anything that's a low priced course, we should probably talk about that in a future something.
Sure. Yeah, there's
Psychology.
a chapter of the book about the relationship between price and volume.
Yeah.
And when you price a course, how much volume do you have to do to meet the same objective as a higher price course?
Yep.
And the thinking in that is exactly kind of what you're talking about. Is that when you make the choice about what type of price and volume you want to work with, it changes the way your work happens after that.
Yeah.
You have to, if you're working on a high volume, low price product, you better love marketing. That's all I'm going to say. You better be like that.
Well, you better love marketing anyway. Course marketing, book marketing. You better find a way to love it, kids, because it's going to be with you forever. But if you're doing something that's low price, then you have to sell a lot in order to make anything that's measurable.
Right.
Right.
And this is all working under the assumption that the value is there, right, in the product. So if you have this high value product, the second question is, why are you even thinking about low price, high volume? It's like, you really have to be careful. And if your business currently works on referrals or on like kind of boutique services, how out of alignment are you going to be with your brand? Yep. And so there's a lot of thinking about like where you're going to price and what kind of people, what type of people in the market you're going to reach with those prices, because in some markets, very low prices have a perception of low quality because that audience doesn't buy low price things traditionally, and they don't think that they can find value in lower price things.
Right. If you don't price it high enough, people go, it's not even worth it. Although sometimes I will buy something from someone who has higher price courses to see how much value they provide in the lower price coursing and what that experience is like. Because it gives you a little peek behind the curtain. Yep. So I do have some lower price courses to go with my higher price courses to give people a little taste of knowledge and expertise. Right. So,
and you can use micro or mini courses for providing great value in a small compact package that can reach people in a more accessible way. Like your course becomes more accessible when the price is lower. but that doesn't mean you should give up the entire farm for that one price year round. And it's different than doing a promotion. So like, this is one of the reasons why the 99-cent book, right, is a good example of this. Do you leave it 99 cents all year, or is it a promotion? It's a big difference in that.
That's right.
Big difference. Right. Okay. So that's the top of the hour, literally.
Lucas, we could talk about this stuff all day, but most people will not sit on a live with us all day. So let's leave them wanting more. So we'll come back next week and talk about something exciting and compelling. And you can tell us what the next book is that you're writing and what you're working on. And I mean, I think you have like another book coming out like between now and next week, right? Yeah.
I mean, on the 29th, I have a fiction book coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we'll talk about that. So we'll talk about all the things.
Yes, ma'am.
All the things that are coming up. Yeah. Very good. Thank you, Wayne and Karen and everybody who tuned in and everyone who is with us after the fact. We so appreciate you. Please like and love and share, ring the bell, subscribe to our newsletters. Come hang out with us. We're so fun. Join the mastermind, take a course, read a book, change your life, all the things. Thank you, Lucas. You're such a wealth of knowledge. And now I am not ashamed to say I take full advantage to the fact that I have you on speed dial when I have a question, because it's so nice to have someone who knows what they're talking about to just answer that real-time question, right? So right. I know Wayne said earlier that, he would pay extra for access to an expert. And isn't that the truth? Having someone who can just answer your question and provide context and reasoning behind it is really invaluable. So thank you, Lucas, for spending this hour with me and with everybody. So cool.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for having me, guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks.